Hi, it's Katrina. Today I'll be exploring some of the most perplexing and awe inspiring archaeological finds of our time. Megalithic structures that are rewriting history. From colossal blocks in Lebanon to huge structures in Egypt, Mexico, Peru, Russia, there are sites that are so old they are even older than us. Some structures were not built by Homo sapiens at all, but by another clever species that no longer exists. Let's explore paths far more complex than you dared to imagine. Ancient engineering that shouldn't exist. In modern day Lebanon lies Baalbek, a place that shouldn't be possible. Even the Romans raised their eyebrows at the sheer size of Baalbek's megalithic stones. Imagine a foundation built with stones weighing over 1,000 tons, fitted with laser like precision at a time we believe that humans barely had bronze tools. This place is home to some of the heaviest rocks ever moved. Some stones tip the scales at a mind-boggling 1,650 tons. That's not just big, it's impossible. Historians, archaeologists, and conspiracy theorists have all taken a crack at deciphering Baalbek's true origins. Theories range from a Phoenician sanctuary dedicated to the god Baal, an out-of-place structure from 20,000 years ago that defies history, or the work of ancient astronauts. It's a historical mystery wrapped in a stone-cold what the heck? No matter which camp you fall into, one thing is clear. Whoever built Baalbek was working with knowledge and skills that seem way ahead of their time. Let's talk about the Trilithon, 3 massive stone blocks each weighing about 1,000 tons. For comparison, that's about 300 elephants stacked on top of each other, or the full weight of 2 fully loaded freight trains, or more than the weight of a SpaceX rocket. Despite their incredible size, the stones are still sitting perfectly placed today after more than 2,000 years, interlocked with mind-blowing precision. I'd love to tell you how, but scientists don't even know. Usually they have some kind of an explanation, but this time, crickets. Ancient civilizations from South America to the Middle East were pulling off these impossible feats of engineering without cranes, bulldozers, or modern machinery. No one can make sense of the colossal enigma that is the ancient stonework. If you thought the Trilithon was huge, get this. Baalbek also has the largest known stone block ever quarried. It's a monster known as the Forgotten Stone. It weighs 1,650 tons. It's so big that it's never been moved or finished. Why was it left unfinished? Did the builders bite off more than they could chew? Or did something happen that forced them to abandon their work? A popular theory is that the builders of Baalbek's Forgotten Stone were using lost technology that has never been recreated, not even in modern times. Technology that was available to certain civilizations but was ultimately lost. Another theory is that the carvers of the Forgotten Stone had a secret knowledge of physics that we don't fully understand today. Then there's mainstream archaeology, which leans toward the idea that ancient people were just way smarter than we think they were. The mysterious Sage Wall of Montana. Montana is the land of big skies, bigger mountains, and even bigger mysteries. From UFO sightings to haunted ghost towns, there's no shortage of weird stuff lurking in its vast, rugged landscapes. But there is one mystery that's got both archaeologists and conspiracy theorists scratching their heads. It's called the Sage Wall. This 275-foot long, 24-foot high stone structure is tucked away in the middle of nowhere, as most good mysteries are. It is so perfectly aligned that you would think time travelers with OCD built it. Despite decades of speculation, no one really knows who or what made the wall. Unlike, say, the Great Wall of China, the Sage Wall isn't exactly a tourist hotspot. In fact, if you weren't specifically looking for it, you'd probably walk right past it. No one took much notice of the feature until 1996, when Christopher Borton and Linda Welsh stumbled upon it while hiking their property near Whitehall. That was almost 30 years ago. Since then, people have come up with the idea that the Sage Wall was built by a pre-Columbian culture that somehow mastered Lego-level stone stacking. Problem is, there is zero historical evidence of an advanced society in the area. Scratch that, there is no evidence of any society in the area. The wall appears to be a unique remnant of a people that no longer exists. There are no tools, no houses, no villages, nothing nearby that links the wall to a civilization. With that in mind, could it be a normal geological formation? A lot of the experts claim the Sage Wall is a fluke of nature, But that doesn't explain why the blocks are so eerily precise, nor why you can't even slip a knife blade between them. If it isn't geological, whoever built this thing didn't just plop down some pebbles. The stones weigh several tons each. That's heavier than a T-Rex. Yes, I checked. Despite limited studies, there is no definitive answer about how old it is, who built it, or why it exists. And given its remote location, it's unlikely archaeologists will be launching a full-scale excavation anytime soon. I guess Montana knows how to keep a secret. And now for a quick break because it's shoutout time. I want to give a big thank you to Bobby Welch and Haley for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching and spending time with me. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos like this. Murder at Stonehenge. Stonehenge is one of the biggest mysteries in the world, but there is so much more going on at Stonehenge than just some strangely oriented stones. This megalith is home to a history of murder. 5,000 years ago, some Neolithic people arrived at a plain in what is now England and thought, yeah, this is the spot. For what? I can't say. Maybe it looked like a good camping spot. Maybe the vibes were on point. Maybe they just got tired and didn't want to walk anymore. Whatever the motivation, Stonehenge became a magnet for people who kept showing up for centuries, tweaking and modifying the site as if it were an early version of home renovation, but with way more heavy lifting. Stonehenge was built, but that came a little later. Here's what your friends don't know. Before the first giant stones were even set in place, Stonehenge was a giant prehistoric cemetery. Hundreds of cremated bodies were buried here, which suggests the site was all about death rituals, centuries before it was all about giant stones and solstices. According to archaeologist Mike Pitts, the earliest use of Stonehenge was deeply tied to the disposal of the dead and ceremonies involving the dead. So not exactly a party spot, but definitely an important one. Then, around 4,000 years ago, the famous blue stones and sarsen stones were brought in. And guess what? The connection to death stuck around. People kept using the site for mysterious rituals, though no one today can say exactly what those rituals involved. One of the biggest clues is Stonehenge's alignment. On one side, it lines up with the midsummer sunrise. On the other side, it matches the midwinter sunset. The alignment has historians wondering if Stonehenge was an ancient calendar, a giant sundial, or some sort of prehistoric computer. Pitts and other archaeologists argue that the alignment was more symbolic than scientific. Like how Christian churches face east-west, the builders weren't necessarily tracking time, but rather creating a spiritual connection between life, death, and the movements of the sun and the moon. If things weren't already strange enough, around the same time Stonehenge was getting its megalithic makeover, another giant circle was being built a few miles away. This one was built from wood. In ancient times, wood was associated with living things, while stone was associated with death. The wooden circle may have been a site celebrating the living, while Stonehenge was used to commemorate the deceased. In all honesty, these are just guesses. With 5,000 years of history, it's hard for someone alive today to pinpoint exactly what was going on here. What I do know is that by 1500 BC, Stonehenge was falling apart. It turns out even massive stone structures don't last forever. Then, one fateful day, Stonehenge became the site of a murder. Meet skeleton 4.10.4, aka the beheaded Anglo-Saxon guy. Sorry, I have no idea what his name was. Sometime around the early Middle Ages, this unlucky soul was dragged to Stonehenge, executed, and buried on the spot. Why, you ask? No one has any idea, but it's clear that people at the time still thought of Stonehenge as an important, possibly even supernatural place, even if by the Middle Ages its original purpose was lost to time. Here's something else your friends don't know. The word Stonehenge literally means stone gallows in early English. While there is no proof that this was a regular execution site, this one dramatic beheading suggests that Stonehenge was still considered eerie, powerful, and maybe even cursed. It was the perfect place for a murderer to take their unfortunate victim. The bottom line is that for thousands of years, humans kept returning to this spot, even as its meaning changed. It was a burial ground, then a ritual site, then an ancient relic where people committed murder, and today it's a tourist hotspot where people take selfies with rocks. Have you ever been to Stonehenge? Let me know what your experience was like in the comments. I'd love to hear. The Dragon of Siberia. Secreted away in the Altai Mountains of Siberia, where the temperatures are freezing and the mysteries are even colder, archaeologists have stumbled upon something wild. Something that may be proof of an ancient civilization that predates written history. Somewhere out there, hidden in the rugged landscape, a massive dragon and a griffin have been hanging out for tens of thousands of years, locked in stone. In 2013, Russian archaeologist Ruslan Pozyolkov was surveying the Altai Mountains when he came across these jaw-dropping formations. While most people see a pile of rocks and think, just some boulders, Pozyolkov took one look and knew that he was looking at something special. One of the giant stones looks like it was carved in the likeness of a dragon. The other resembles a mythical griffin. The dragon megalith is an absolute unit, weighing an estimated 120 tons. Pozyolkov pointed out that its bold, smooth features resemble a dinosaur or a crocodile, which natural granite cracking just doesn't do. Pozyolkov believes that someone carved the rock into the shape of a dragon. If his theory is correct, the megaliths could date back at least 12,000 years, which would mean they were built by prehistoric people at the end of the last ice age. But how and why? Sadly, those are questions I can't answer. It seems Siberia was home to a civilization 7,000 years before Stonehenge was built. However, the stone dragon's head isn't enough to convince mainstream scientists. Not to worry though, there is a second part to this mystery. The griffin megalith stands near the dragon head. It's about 18 feet long, almost 10 feet high, and looks like the eagle-headed griffins of the Scythian culture. The Scythians that lived in the Eurasian steppes about 3,000 years ago. They were notoriously obsessed with griffins. There is a possibility that the Scythians were behind the griffin megalith, but they were 9,000 years too late to take credit for the dragon head. Right now, Pozyolkov's findings are waiting for verification from other scientists. Making world-shattering claims requires a second opinion. Weird stones in France. Breaking news, everyone! New megalithic stones have been unearthed in France, and they're even weirder than scientists could have ever imagined. In 2018, archaeologists from the French National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research stumbled upon something mind-blowing near the town of Massagny. They dug up an ancient Neolithic village that was built around a massive stone complex. This whole site had been hiding in the open for thousands of years. The original setup here was pretty dramatic. Not Kardashian dramatic, more like architecturally awesome, like the Guggenheim. There was a giant central pillar about 11 feet long and weighing 5 tons, looking like a huge obelisk or an unadorned totem pole. The central pillar was surrounded by a circle of smaller stone towers, like little wizard hovels. It's all very mystical, very ancient, and very let's go summon some spirits and dance under the blood moon. This is no ordinary stone circle. It has some glaring issues, such as the main pillar that never stood upright. The big old slab of rock was clearly meant to be upright, but for some reason the builders left it lying down. Maybe they ran out of energy, or maybe the ancient construction crew clocked out early. Even stranger is that the smaller standing stones were later knocked over and buried. Someone purposely tipped them over like an angry teen kicking garden gnomes on Halloween, and then they buried them like a dog with a bone in the backyard. No one has the slightest clue why this happened. Was it a botched renovation? Spiritual upgrade? Ancient zoning laws? Your guess is as good as mine. The layout is weird, and so is the graffiti on the stones. The biggest stone has a giant U shape carved into it, a horizontal band, and some chevrons. The smaller slabs have herringbone and cruciform patterns scratched into them. It's like someone played an ancient game of Pictionary here. But of course, no one today knows what these symbols mean. If you can squint at these rocks and come up with a reasonable explanation for the weirdness, let me know. The genius of the Menga dolmen. Let me introduce you to the megalithic monster of the Menga dolmen in Spain. It's even more proof that our ancestors weren't just banging rocks together and hoping for the best. For decades, we pictured them as brute force builders, a trial and error crew. Imagine their anxiety, stacking massive stones, holding their breath, and hoping their construction wouldn't turn into a prehistoric demolition derby. But new research? It's rewriting the history books. Turns out these Neolithic builders were basically ancient engineers in disguise. They were slinging geometry, physics, and construction principles like they were going out of style, thousands of years before we even officially invented them. The Menga dolmen, a prehistoric beast built between 3800 and 3600 BC, is made of 32 colossal stones. Some of these rocks weigh 5 times more than the biggest ones at Stonehenge. And the granddaddy of them all? A 150-ton slab the size of a blue whale. I mean, seriously, how do you move a blue whale-sized rock without a crane? I'm picturing a prehistoric team of very, very strong individuals and a lot of grunting. Here's where it gets wild. A study in Science Advances revealed these builders weren't just strong, they were geniuses. They understood friction, load-bearing, and get this, the arch principle. That 150-ton ceiling, it is slightly convex, distributing weight like a modern bridge. It's like finding a quantum physics textbook in a dinosaur's nest. Okay, not quite. So, did aliens drop off some architectural blueprints? Did they tap into some ancient forgotten knowledge? Or were those 500,000-year-old log cabin builders just the first class of a really, really long engineering program? This discovery, along with places like Göbekli Tepe, is shaking up everything we thought we knew about early humans. The megalithic mystery jars. Scientists finally think they have solved the mystery of the world's biggest, creepiest, and oldest stone jars found in the middle of a remote Asian jungle. This baffling archaeological puzzle involves the massive mystery jars of Laos. Imagine walking through a field and being surrounded by thousands of giant ancient stone jars, some standing tall, some knocked over. It's like stumbling into the remnants of an epic prehistoric keg party, except no one left a note. And without a note, scientists are scrambling for answers. This place is known as the Plain of Jars, and it's had historians scratching their heads for years. What were the jars for? Who made them? And most importantly, was there ever anything cool inside them? Local tales say the jars were used for storing food. Others claim they held rainwater, and my favorite is that they were giant vats of rice wine for a victorious army. If you go through the trouble of carving out a 10-foot-tall stone cup, you'd better be throwing one heck of a party, right? But archaeologists have a more, let's say, sober theory. They think the massive jars were part of an ancient burial practice, possibly used to decompose bodies before final burial. Stick a human in a jar, let them decay, and then bury the bones at a later date. Not as fun as a 2,000-year-old happy hour, but still fascinating. You might be wondering why scientists have had such a hard time solving Laos's premier mystery. It's a little bit tragic, to tell you the truth. Laos is one of the most heavily bombed countries in history. During the 1960s and 70s, the US dropped millions of bombs here, and a terrifying number of them never exploded. This means that many areas of the Plain of Jars are still real-life minefields. Digging around for historical treasures is not high on the priority list when every step could be your last. Would you be brave enough to go treasure hunting in a field of unexploded bombs? I don't think it's worth it. Because of the danger, less than 10% of these megalithic jars have been studied. That's like only getting through the first season of a really good mystery and never knowing how it ends because you're scared you might explode. Frustrating. Thanks to a cutting-edge dating technique called optically stimulated luminescence, researchers have now figured out when these jars were placed in the field. There's been speculation that they were anywhere from 10,000 years old to only a few centuries old. The recent tests prove that, get ready, the Plain of Jars is a little over 3,000 years old. Dating the jars is an amazing step into discovering their secrets, but it has resulted in a few problems. The jars are older than the bodies found near them, suggesting the jars and bodies are not even connected. Wait, there's another head scratcher. Some of the stone jars weigh over 30 tons and were quarried from 5 miles away. How did an ancient civilization without trucks, cranes, or an overworked intern to do the heavy lifting haul these things across the landscape? No one knows, but if history has taught us anything, it's that when ancient people wanted to move ridiculously heavy things, they found a way. The Menehune Breakwater. If you ever find yourself at Kahala'u Bay, soaking up the sun and pretending you're a professional snorkeler, you might notice something unusual. There is a giant wall of stone stretching halfway across the bay. It isn't some unfinished construction project where the workers decided to call it a day and never come back. This is the Palka-Menehune Breakwater, also known as the Wall of the Ancients. I promised in a recent video to do a deeper dive into this structure, so here it is. The Wall of Ancients in Hawaii is said to be a product of Hawaii's forgotten civilization, the Menehune. You can think of the Menehune as the tiny but mighty engineers of ancient Hawaii. The Menehune were legendary little people with Herculean strength, known for pulling off startling stone construction feats. Imagine a bunch of buff smurfs, but instead of living in mushrooms, they lived in lava caves and spent their nights building architectural wonders. That's the myth of the Menehune in a nutshell. They were like a mix between hobbits and dwarves, but less mystical. According to scientists, they may have been perfectly normal humans. It's believed the Menehune were a race of short-statured men and women closely related to us. They occupied Hawaii until the Polynesians came around and defeated them. Throughout Hawaii, you'll find structures supposedly built by these pint-sized powerlifters. The most famous of them all is the Menehune Breakwater at Ka'alau Bay. Legend has it that the Menehune built a wall all the way across the bay to create a massive fish pond. Years later, when the Menehune were defeated, the Hawaiian chiefs destroyed the fish pond so that the annoying wall wouldn't get in the way of their surfing. All that remains is what you see today. If you look at aerial shots of the breakwater, you'll notice that the stones have been scattered over time thanks to powerful waves. Even ancient Menehune craftsmanship can't compete with Mother Nature's mood swings. The next time you're at the bay, floating over colorful fish or catching a wave, just remember you are swimming through history. Even if the wall wasn't built by an antediluvian race of stocky dwarfish Hercules who only built things at night, it is quite the thing to see. The world's oldest structure. Experts have found a hidden level in the history of humanity. 500,000 years ago, long before Homo sapiens walked the earth, our ancient ancestors were already building things out of wood. It's something archaeologists thought was impossible, but a chance discovery has now changed everything. In Zambia, Africa, archaeologists found a 476,000-year-old wooden structure, the oldest ever found. Hidden beneath the waters of the Kalambo River, 2 notched tree trunks were found carefully stacked, like something straight out of a Stone Age Lincoln log set. Who in the world was stacking logs before humans even existed? Was it a prehistoric home improvement show? Ancient ancestor makeover? It's a discovery that rewrites history once again. The structure was discovered at Kalambo Falls, a site already famous for its deep human history. Archaeologists have been digging here since the 1950s, uncovering ancient tools, pollen, and wooden artifacts that paint a vivid picture of early human life. But this latest discovery pushes the timeline of woodworking and human ingenuity way further back than anyone ever imagined. To accurately date the mysterious timbers, the team used luminescence dating. It's a method that determines how long ago grains of sand were last exposed to sunlight. Scientists know it's 500,000 years old, but what was this structure used for? The study's lead researcher, Professor Larry Barham, suggests the timbers may have been part of a raised platform, walkway, or even a foundation for dwellings. That's kind of amazing, seeing as scholars used to think anyone born 500,000 years ago was little more than a fancy monkey. Barham said this changes how we think about early humans. They weren't just surviving, they were shaping their environment. Until now, most evidence of early human innovation came from stone tools because they last forever. On the other hand, wood rots, so wooden artifacts almost never survive the test of time. The fact that these notched logs were preserved is a rare stroke of luck, giving us a glimpse into a part of history that's been almost entirely lost. How many wooden houses were there? Could there have been cities 500,000 years ago? Could we be living through a second or third or fourth rendition of humanity? It's a lot to think about. Our whole existence is being challenged. And the discovery at Kalambo Falls is just the beginning. Archaeologists are eager to see if other sites, previously dismissed as too old for such technology, might also hold similar surprises. Where should archaeologists start looking first? The megalithic enigma of Machu Picchu. There is more going on at Machu Picchu in Peru than meets the eye. Although your tour guide might tell you all kinds of exciting stories as you climb to 7,970 feet above sea level, The truth is that no one has a lock on the site's earliest origins. Machu Picchu overlooks the stunning Sacred Valley of the Incas like a wise old guardian with too many unanswered questions. With the Urubamba River snaking below, carving out a dramatic canyon, the setting is so fantastic it almost feels like it belongs in a fantasy movie. Seriously, if an ancient wizard or a unicorn showed up, no one would even question it. Officially, it's said to have been built around 1450 AD as an estate for Inca Emperor Pachacuti. When you're royalty, your summer getaway is an entire city, not just a crummy Airbnb a 30-minute walk away from anything interesting. But some experts aren't buying it. There are clear signs that the Inca may have found pre-existing structures and then renovated them. The proof is in the stonework. One of the weirdest things about Machu Picchu is the two completely different construction styles. It's like someone hired a master architect for one part and then let their cousin, who built their leaking roof, handle the rest. The one type is megalithic and very ancient. There are walls made of massive, precisely cut stones that fit together so perfectly you can't even slide a credit card between them. No mortar, no glue, just eye-popping precision. Then right next to these architectural marvels, you can see roughly cut stones stacked together in a much less impressive fashion. It's almost like the Inca were trying to copy the original builders and kind of failing at it. Like they saw the impressive stonework and wanted to mimic it, but didn't have the technology necessary to do so. If you ever needed proof that the Inca were playing a game of architectural imitation, look no further than the Temple of the Three Windows. This temple is believed to have been a replica of an earlier megalithic structure. The original version was built with huge, flawless stones, while the Inca version looks like it was thrown together during a last-minute group project. Why? Because if fringe theorists are to be believed, the Inca, despite their many talents, didn't have the same megalithic stone-cutting skills as whoever built the original temple. Sitting on top of a rocky peak in Machu Picchu, the Temple of the Sun is one of the most precisely engineered structures in the city. Perfectly curved walls? Check. Intricate stone alignments? Check. Windows placed so strategically they might as well have been laser-guided? Double check. The Temple of the Sun was likely used as an astronomical observatory to track the summer and winter solstices. Inca used the Temple of the Sun to measure time, track the stars, and possibly even predict events. But was it really the Inca who built it first, or did they just repurpose an even older structure and use it to conduct their own astronomical observations? Here's another point that keeps archaeologists up at night. One of the wildest things about Machu Picchu is that it's practically earthquake-proof. Unlike modern buildings that crumble like a house of cards when the ground shakes, the megalithic structures here were built with seismic-resistant engineering. The stones are cut and arranged in a way that lets them shift slightly without collapsing. Even after centuries of earthquakes, these walls are still standing. How did the builders know how to do this? I mean, really, how did they know? Most ancient civilizations thought earthquakes were sent by the gods and weren't designing their homes to withstand them. One more mystery. Deep within Machu Picchu, there is a cave-like structure known as the Temple of the Dead, or the Mother Earth Temple. Unlike the other buildings, this one seems a little too different. Some of the stones in the Temple of the Dead look like they melted, as if they were somehow softened and reshaped. Conventional archaeology doesn't have a solid explanation. Alternative theories range from lost ancient technology to aliens, with people suggesting the rocks were melted by some sort of extreme heat, perhaps produced by energy weapons or high-tech lasers. That's fun. Machu Picchu is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, one of the 7 wonders of the modern world, and one of the most visited archaeological sites on the planet. But despite all the research, scientists still don't have all the answers they would like to. Was it really built entirely by the Inca in the 15th century, or did they inherit a far older city built by a civilization no one has ever identified?
Thanks for watching! Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. Royal Kurgan of Kerch. Located in the city of Kerch in eastern Crimea, the Royal Kurgan is an ancient burial mound famous for its unique vaulted entranceway. Also known as the Tsarski Kurgan, it's believed to date back to around the 4th century BC. Out of the 200 kurgans in and around Kerch, it is said to be the most impressive and once held the remains of an ancient king. Researchers believe that the mound is the final resting place of a ruler from the Bosporan Kingdom. which was founded in the 5th century BC by Greek colonies from around the northern Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Some speculate that the two may have belonged to Leucon of Bosporus, who ruled from 389 to 349 BC. Regardless, we don't know much about this mysterious kingdom, but they left behind many kurgans. Inside each one was a burial chamber. By the time the Greeks came along, many years later, kurgans had been used for a long time by many civilizations in the region, including the Scythians. However, the entrance hall is what makes this burial mound stand out. The hall creates a sharp vault and looks like it was made much more recently. The exterior looks more Scythian, while the inside looks Greek, demonstrating a blend of cultures. The kurgan is also enormous, nearly 66 feet tall, and measures around 820 feet at its base. There is also a reference to the shape and design looking a little feminine in nature. When the kurgan was excavated during the 1830s, all that was left of its contents were the remnants of a wooden sarcophagus, indicating that it was looted at some point before then. Religious symbols inscribed on the walls suggest that the royal kurgan also served as a sanctuary for early Christians. There is very little archaeological evidence to tell us more, and there are no written records from the time. Was this really a burial chamber for a king? Why is this mound so different from the rest? We will probably never know. Hessdalen lights. Bizarre flashing balls of light have been appearing in rural central Norway's Hessdalen Valley for over a century now. Where do they come from? Nobody knows. Called the Hessdalen lights or the Hessdalen phenomenon, the bright white, yellow, and red lights appear both above and below the horizon during the day and at night. The flashes last anywhere from a few seconds to a few hours and have been observed hovering, moving slowly, and with enormous speed. People have also reported seeing metallic objects in the sky during the daytime, as well as bright blue flashes that last no longer than the blink of an eye, giving rise to rumors surrounding the presence of UFOs and extraterrestrials. There is definitely something strange going on here. There have been periods of unusually high activity, including during the early 1980s, when the lights appeared up to 20 times per week, according to Caroline Williams reporting for New Scientist. Since then, the annual number of sightings has dwindled to 20 or less. Scientists and conspiracy theorists alike have investigated the phenomenon, but nobody has conclusively determined what it is or what causes it. One theory suggests that metallic minerals interact with a sulfurous river, creating a type of natural battery that illuminates the sky. The researchers replicated this effect in an experiment, lending potential credibility to their suspicions. Some experts believe that a type of plasma is responsible for the Hessdalen lights, while others think the phenomenon is a type of lightning. But plasmas require incredibly hot temperatures to form, and the lights seem to be cool. They also don't occur during regular lightning or leave scorch marks on the ground. Other theories include the possibility that the valley's shape, climate, geology, and high winds generate static electricity, or that radioactivity or decaying radon in the atmosphere are responsible for the lights. Whatever the case, more research is necessary before the scientists can solve the mystery. America's Stonehenge. Hidden in the woods in Salem, New Hampshire, there are some very mysterious stone structures. Not Salem, Massachusetts with the witches, in case you were confused. Nobody knows who built these structures or when. Once known as Mystery Hill, the site has been renamed America's Stonehenge. The rock arrangements are scattered throughout a privately owned 30-acre site that attracts visitors who are eager to come see them and speculate about where they came from. Some believe that the structures are pre-Columbian, meaning they were built by an ancient Native American society. But is it really that old? Is it a real archaeological site, or just something someone built for fun more recently? William Goodwin bought the property in 1937, and he is the one who gave it the name Mystery Hill. He believed that the structures proved that Irish monks had arrived in the Americas long before Christopher Columbus. But his activities at the site, which included quarrying and moving rocks to what he believed were their original positions, further obscured the property's history. Another belief is that America's Stonehenge was used by farmers from Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries. If it is a historic site, was the maze of stone structures built for ceremonial purposes? There is evidence of bowl fragments and stone tools, as well as fire pits, maybe used to make pottery. There is also reportedly a slab of granite that weighs over 4 tons with a groove. Was it a butcher's table? A sacrificial altar? Carbon dating suggests that part of the site may have been constructed 4,000 years ago. Whatever stories the site may once have told are likely lost to history due to all the meddling that has occurred there over the years. In 2019, vandals took power tools to the rocks, and so many people have gone there to add things and move things around that it's hard to tell what's old and what's new at this point. Anjikuni Lake. While seeking refuge from the cold in November 1930, fur trapper Joe LaBelle recognized an Inuit village and went there to take shelter. It was near Anjikuni Lake in Canada's Northwest Territory, and he had been there before. But this time, he found the settlement deserted, with partially prepared meals, a smoldering fire, and all kinds of personal items and supplies left behind, as if the population of 2,000 had fled on a moment's notice. There were no signs of a struggle or what might have happened to the people who lived there, including no footprints in the snow to indicate what direction they had gone. They just disappeared. LaBelle summoned the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who found that every grave at the site had been unearthed and left empty, with the headstones piled neatly to the side. Nearby, a pack of deceased sled dogs lay buried in 12 feet of snow. Investigators questioned a trapper named Armand Laurent and his 2 sons, who said that he had witnessed a large cylindrical object falling from the sky and transforming into a bullet shape before traveling toward Anjikuni Lake. The RCMP allegedly determined that the villagers had gone missing roughly 8 weeks before LaBelle discovered their eerily empty site, but nobody ever figured out why. In hindsight, researchers noticed that there are numerous concerning holes in the story surrounding the village, including a lack of physical evidence that it ever existed in the first place, and no accounts of anyone going to clean it up. Plus, the first known mention of a suspected UFO appeared in a book about UFO sightings, which seems very convenient for whoever wrote the book. Joe LaBelle was certainly a real person, but whether or not he came across an actual abandoned village is unknown, and if you ask certain people, doubtful, especially since there is no evidence of an official RCMP investigation. What happened to the Anjikuni people? This entire incident remains an unsolved mystery. And now for number 5, but first want to say a big shout out to Ben Allen. Glad I can help you get a good night's sleep. And to Al C. Later Pepper and husband. Hi guys! Big thank you to you. And if you are new here, be sure to subscribe and join the Origins Explained family. Moncton Magnetic Hill. For over 80 years, a small hill in the New Brunswick, Canada town of Moncton has been baffling travelers. In this place, if you take the foot off the brake of your vehicle while traveling downhill, your car will actually roll backward and uphill. There are several types of hills like this in other places too, including in Ladakh, India, and Springer, Oklahoma. This phenomenon appears to be an optical illusion of sorts. As Atlas Obscura explains, what seems like an uphill incline is actually a portion of a larger downhill incline. Our brains fool us into seeing it this way because the slopes offer little to no view of the horizon line, making us feel as if an invisible force is pulling us upward. The magnetic road in Moncton started out as a cart path during the 19th century, and it was later expanded to accommodate cars. Motorists noticed the bizarre uphill effect when they found themselves feeling like they had to accelerate to avoid rolling backwards. Today, this and other similar sites around the world attract tourists who readily pay to put their car in neutral and roll uphill while observing the water in nearby drainage ditches moving in the same direction. Have you ever been to a place like this? Would you want to go? Let me know in the comments below. Devil's Kettle Falls. Devil's Kettle Falls is a beautiful place with mysterious waterfalls. Located just south of the US-Canadian border in Minnesota, the falls split into 2. One side falls down like a normal waterfall, but the other side does not. This side plunges down straight into a deep hole and then vanishes. But where does the water go? Described by Tree Hugger as a geological conundrum, the site attracts researchers and hikers alike, who have tried to solve the mystery of where the water from the Brule River ends up. People have tried numerous methods of tracking its flow, including dropping dye, rubber duckies, and ping pong balls into the river, and then watching the lake for their reappearance, only to never see the object again. Geologists ruled out the possibility of an underground river long ago, pointing out that this would only be possible in places where deep caves are made from soft rock, which is not the case in northern Minnesota. There is also no evidence of a nearby fault line, ruling out the possibility that tectonic action crushed underground rock layers and made them permeable. In 2017, the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources announced that it had finally solved the mystery. and that the water cascading down into the Devil's Kettle is reabsorbed into the Brule River from underground. The agency noted that practically the same volume of water flows above and below the Devil's Kettle, indicating that it was re-emerging beneath the waterfall. But how come if you throw an object into the top of the waterfall, it vanishes and never reappears? Speaking with NPR News, researcher Calvin Alexander explained that the system of powerful recirculating currents at the bottom of the falls could easily plunge the item below the water's surface or cause it to disintegrate. Scientists said several years ago that they were planning to conduct another dye test to prove their findings, but the matter remains unresolved to this day. Potomsky Crater. The Potomsky Crater is a peculiar rock formation in southeastern Siberia's Irkutsk region. Made from shattered limestone blocks, it stands at roughly 130 feet tall and has a base diameter of 520 feet. At the top is a ring-shaped cone with a smaller, 39-foot-tall mound in the center. The crater's origins have been a mystery ever since its discovery in 1949 by Russian geologist Vadim Kolpakov. With an estimated age of just 300 to 350 years old, theories abound, including the possibilities of a meteorite, volcanic, or gaseous activity forming the crater, as well as possible radioactivity, as evidenced by trees nearby that show signs of accelerated growth. As of 2010, the general consensus was that the Potomsky Crater has geological origins, although some scientists still believe it was caused by a meteor. Some of the more imaginative theories connect the site with a suspected hidden nuclear plant or a buried UFO containing nuclear fuel. But no asteroid-like materials or metal have been discovered in or around the crater, making these possibilities highly unlikely. Recent research suggests that perhaps a gas volcano formed by the underground release of hydrogen and other fluids caused the trees near the crater to grow abnormally fast. Speaking with the Siberian Times, researcher Alexander Pospiv admitted that scientists don't yet know how the Potomsky Crater formed, but that it's definitely of earthly origin. The Dancing Forest. Notable for its unusually twisting, drunken pine trees, the Dancing Forest is situated along the Black Sea coast on a long, thin sand dune known as the Curonian Spit in Kaliningrad Oblast, Russia. Planted in the early 1960s, the trees take on numerous patterns, including rings, hearts, and spirals. Scientists have tried and failed to explain the mechanisms behind the dancing forest. One prevailing theory suggests that caterpillars damage the trees at a young age, causing them to grow in a strange way. Strong winds, human manipulation, and unstable sand have also been blamed for the strangely shaped trees. Of course, some adhere to more supernatural theories, including the possibility that the trees are the product of a clash between positive and negative energy. Others have proposed that the trees follow the direction of the sand dunes. According to local legend, the trees were forced to dance to prove the Christian god's power. Consequently, the dancing forest is rife with superstition. Strange things happen here, but it's not all bad. Folklore dictates that climbing through one of the rings brings a granted wish, or adds a year onto a person's life. Movil Cave. Situated near the Black Sea and the Bulgarian border in southeastern Romania, an underground cave has sat isolated for the past 5.5 million years. It sits beneath a barren, desolate plain and contains a host of life that was cut off from the entire rest of the world, long before the earliest humans roamed the planet. Known as Movil Cave, the site is pitch dark and poisonous. Discovered by workers in 1986, it's accessible via a narrow 66-foot shaft and a series of thin limestone tunnels leading to a subterranean lake filled with sulfuric water. Along the descent, the temperature steadily rises. According to the few dozen people who have visited Movil Cave, the toxicity reeks like rotten eggs due to the overwhelming presence of hydrogen sulfide. The cavern is filled with dangerous gases, including carbon dioxide, and the oxygen content is extremely low at just 10%, versus the 20% we are accustomed to breathing at ground level. The Romanian government occasionally allows researchers and other qualified professionals in. Breathing equipment is necessary, and it's only safe to remain down there for 5 to 6 hours, at which point a visitor's kidneys will start to fail. Yet somehow Movil Cave is teeming with life, including snails, shrimp, spiders, and water scorpions. 48 species have been identified so far, including 33 that are endemic to the site. Scientists are confused by the creature's ability to survive in such an inhospitable environment that would never support human life. The water within the cave contains no identifiable food particles, and there is no sunlight to provide nourishment through photosynthesis. It appears as though the animals feed on a layer of froth sitting on top of the lake, which is filled with millions of bacteria called autotrophs. These microscopic organisms obtain energy through chemical reactions. This process, called chemosynthesis, releases carbon dioxide, explaining why the levels are so high inside the cave. Many of the creatures that live here are born without eyes, because who needs to see in the dark? And nearly all of them lack pigment and are equipped with long antennas designed for helping them navigate in the dark. Scientists aren't sure how these life forms ended up trapped in the cave. Some speculate that climate-related events prompted the animals to seek refuge at Moville Cave, where they would have once found a hospitable environment with little competition. But proving this theory is extremely difficult, and evidence shows that different creatures have been down there for different lengths of time. Researchers are not only trying to answer these questions, but are turning to Moville Cave in an attempt to learn more about the development of early life on Earth, which may have had a similar atmosphere. Thanks for watching! Which place did you think was the most mysterious? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye!